Hello everyone, in this video I'll be sharing my settings for Battlefield 1. If you haven't tweaked your settings yet, I highly recommend it, especially if you're looking to improve as a player. So starting off with controls, there's no need to have vibration turned on, so turn it off and save yourself that little bit of extra battery life. Invert, vertical look and flight are both turned off for me. This means when you push up with the analog stick the player looks up instead of down. If you normally use inverted controls, then turn them both on. Soldier stick sensitivity. I've got mine at the maximum 100. The best method I found to increase my sensitivity without hurting my gameplay was to gradually increase the sensitivity by 5% each time. Adding 5% every 20 hours or so worked best for me. The 5% increase in sensitivity was barely noticeable, and 20 hours or so was plenty of time for my muscle memory to get accustomed to the new sensitivity. So if you're looking to improve at Battlefield 1 or in time for the next Battlefield game, I highly recommend increasing your sensitivity. If you do use my strategy, it should take about 200 hours give or take, which isn't bad at all considering the huge improvements you will have made once you've reached max sensitivity. Also, make sure to adjust the sensitivity in all other games to match the one in Battlefield 1 so the muscle memory doesn't go to waste. Vehicle stick sensitivity. I've got mine at 60%. I rarely use vehicles, so I can't advise you much on this one, I'm afraid, so see what works best for you. Soldier zoom sensitivity. I've got mine at 100. Keep it the same as your soldier stick sensitivity so it doesn't feel any different when zooming in. For both soldier and horse sprint, I've got mine on press. Holding it down would just put too much strain on my thumb, so I would just avoid that totally. Double tap forward to sprint, turned off. Soldier and vehicle zoom are both on hold, and the same goes for the steady scope. Bayonet charge is on press. So moving on to the control schemes. I couldn't use the standard PS4 controller and I've got the entire button layout set as default, so no secret layout or customization here. To be honest, I've tried out switching toggle gadget 1 with the fire mode, but I've never really got used to it. A common layout I've seen many players use is using R3 for crouch, so you can slide without having to move your thumbs off the analog sticks. But since the slide got nerfed, there isn't much to gain from it, to be honest. If anything, it only makes it a bit more trickier for yourself now. Moving on to advanced controls. The aim stick acceleration is how much the stick will speed up after pressing it in a certain direction. If you look at one direction and hold it, you'll gradually start spinning on the spot. It might be useful for low sensitivity players so you get a little boost, but I'll keep mine at 0 since my sensitivity doesn't need any more accelerating. The center dead zone is just sensitivity 2.0. The lower it is, the more responsive your controller will be, so even the slightest movement on the stick will make your player move. I've got my left controller stick set to 0% because it's only used for movement. Having a super responsive left stick means less delays in changing directions. A fraction of a second faster response time can easily help you avoid those grenades that otherwise would have killed you easily. I only recommend it for the left analog stick though. The center dead zone for the right analog stick is 15%, and that's because I don't want my aim to be all over the place. I've tried 0% and let's just say my crosshairs were moving around without me even touching the controller. So keep it at a comfortable percentage that won't hurt your aim. 15% is the sweet spot for me at the moment, but I might possibly work my way down to 10% in the future. The axle dead zone is unchanged for both, so I don't recommend that you change those either. The max input threshold is 50% for my left analog stick and 100% for my right. It's just to make my movement stick as responsive as possible so I can change directions faster. A lot of players just focus on aim sensitivity but totally ignore movement sensitivity. I believe a higher movement sensitivity can give you a slight advantage when encountering enemies, so give it a try. The max input threshold for R2 and L2 is 5%. This means you won't have to push down the triggers as hard to fire. It's extremely useful when using weapons that need a fast trigger finger, such as the auto load and extended. A faster response time on the R2 button can definitely win you some gunfights, so I highly recommend it. The soldier and vehicle zoom sensitivity for each magnification is 100%. To be honest, there's no need to play around with these, so just keep them the same. And this is probably an appropriate time for me to show you some of the magnifications I use for each class. So when it comes to the assault rifles, I always use minimum magnifications. That's because the lower the zoom, the less visual recoil you get compared to a higher magnification. It's a lot easier to control a weapon's recoil when it's not zoomed in and moving all over the screen. Same goes for the medic class. I use the lowest zoom magnifications for the entire medic class unless I'm using the optical variant. You really don't want to be put off by the zoom in close quarters, especially if you're using the Howl or the M1916 marksman, so I try to make a few as natural as possible. For the support class, I like to use the 1.25 times zoom, except for the bar and parabellum. They both have substantially more recoil than the other support weapons, so I use the minimum magnifications to counter the recoil. For the scout class, I use the maximum zoom for all infantry and marksman rifles. That's because the bigger the targets, the easier it is to hit them. So that's a max zoom of 2 times for infantry rifles and 4 times for marksman rifles. However, for the sniper variants, it really depends on what map you're playing on. A long range map like Monte Grappa and Empire's Edge probably requires an 8 times zoom, but for smaller maps like Amiens you want a lower magnification, so change it around consistently depending on the environment. So continuing where we left off, for the vehicle driver and passenger controls I've just left them both on as it is. Again, I don't use vehicles much at all, so I can't really advise you on the best settings for these. Uniform soldier aiming on and coefficiency as default. So moving on to gameplay settings. Show HUD, yes. Show player created content if you want to see platoon names, tags and emblems. Chat log when active only, so you see messages pop up. Inventory when active only, of course. The kill log is always on for me, but for nearby kills only. This helps me spot activity around me and can be very useful for noticing close by enemies that aren't on the minimap. No need to show awards. Vehicle seats info, show so you can spot the empty seats. Show for critical messages. My crosshair visibility is set at 80%, and for crosshair colour just change it around depending on the map. Hot pink is a commonly used one, but see what works best for you. I don't have a structured colour system for the hit indicators, but just pick colours that make sense to you. For example, I've got the kill colour as white, so I know when I neutralise the player, purple for headshots and red for critical damage. It makes sense to me, so try it out if you haven't changed yours from the default settings, and again, see what works best for you. And I've got damage based shapes turned on. Here is my minimap settings, nothing spectacular, so I won't go over these in any detail. And the same goes for the world icons. I've got the camera shake turned down to 30%, you don't really need it any higher with all the grenade spam and explosions constantly going on. Auto leaning and auto peek over are both on for me. No parachute auto deployment for me, it will just leave you vulnerable if the parachute automatically deploys in mid-air. Context based orders giving, yes. Plane chase camera roll, yes. Aim assist auto rotation, I've got this turned off. If you do want to improve your aim and get better, you should definitely turn this off as well. Your aim might suffer at the start, but in the long run you'll definitely become a better player. But I do have aim assist slow down turned on. It just slows down my aim when I'm on target so my crosshairs don't fly all over the place. Reload hint is on show, hint system on hide, you don't really need this after a few hours of Battlefield 1. Network performance graph is on hide, and I've got my aim lead indicator on show so that I'm aware of any ping spikes. Low ping network smoothing turned off and allow share usage data so EA can use that data to improve the game. So here's my audio settings. Again, I'm not going to go into too much details about this, but I do use an A50 Astro headset with surround sound to hear footsteps, but that's all for the audio. So moving on to the video settings. I've got my brightness set at 50% at all times except for when I play on a night map. I normally increase it to 100% for a night map. My FOV is horizontal 81. This is the sweet spot for me. I tend to move around and look around a lot, and that's quite effortless with a high sensitivity, so there's no need to change that for me at the moment. If anything, it just hurts your gameplay at a certain point, so I wouldn't advise anything higher than the horizontal 90. My vehicle third person FOV is exactly the same. I've got the ADS field of view turned off. This means when I'm aimed in on a specific target, the FOV closes in instead of keeping the same width. I find it works best with infantry scout rifles when you want to single out a player and get a better view. Motion blur turned off. you don't really need that. Weapon DOV turned off. I find blurry sights to be off-putting, so I wouldn't recommend leaving it on. You want to get as much clarity as you can get when aiming down sights. My colorblind options are unchanged, so change them to your personal preference or needs. And the last 3 effects are all turned off for me. It's great for making Battlefield 1 look more cinematic and more immersive, but it doesn't benefit gameplay at all. So that's all for now. I hope this video has given you some insights on some of the settings that are available to you. Leave a like and a comment, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.